All right, are you ready to dive deep?
Let's do it.
Today we're taking on The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Got your notes, got your highlights. We're going for the gold here.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
You think about the title, The Compound Effect. It sounds almost like
a little bit sciencey,
like a science textbook.
like a physics experiment.
Totally. But the book's not about some big, complicated secret.
Right.
It's really all about those small, smart choices, the stuff we do every single day.
And how those add up to make
Massive change.
huge changes over time.
Exactly.
So the book starts out with this really interesting thought experiment.
Oh, I love this one.
Yeah, it's the magic penny. So imagine you've got a choice. You can either take $3 million right now, cash in hand, or you can take a single penny. But here's the catch. That penny doubles in value every single day for 31 days.
It's a classic example of compounding, isn't it? Really
Yeah.
gets you thinking.
It does. I mean, who wouldn't be tempted to take the $3 million? Like instant gratification, problem solved, right?
But here's the thing. That penny, it ends up being worth way more. It just takes a little patience and, that long-term vision.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you read it and you think, okay, on day 5, my friend with the penny has, 16 cents? I'm over here $3 million richer.
Right. And that's where the mind plays tricks on us.
But Hardy does the math for us. And on that final day, day 31, that little penny, over $10 million.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it. It shows you that even those tiny actions, things that seem insignificant at the time, can really snowball into big results. And the best part is this idea applies to literally every area of our lives. Finances, health, relationships, you name it.
It's almost like a hidden superpower, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so now Hardy, he introduces us to these 3 guys, Larry, Scott, and Brad. They're friends, pretty similar lives, similar incomes, all married with that, a little extra weight from being married.
The marriage weight. I know it well.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Scott, he decides, I want to make some small changes. I want to feel better.
So he starts small, which I think is key.
Mm-hmm.
He commits to reading 10 pages of a good book every day, listening to 30 minutes of something inspiring or educational, on his commute. He cuts 125 calories from his diet and tries to, walk a bit more. Simple stuff, but he sticks with it.
He is consistent, yeah. So then there's Brad. Brad's more like, you know what, I'm going to enjoy life, indulge a little, maybe not be as active.
Yeah, we all know a Brad.
Yeah. And then there's Larry. He's just kind of cruising along, no major changes.
Keeping the status quo.
Exactly. So 31 months go by.
A little over 2.5 years.
Yeah. And the differences in their lives are just wild.
It's pretty stark.
Scott, with those small, consistent choices, he's lost weight, he gets a promotion at work, his marriage is even stronger.
Everything's looking up for Scott. It's a good reminder that those little things, when we do them consistently, they really can make a difference.
Yeah. Now, Brad, not so much. He actually gained weight, he's struggling at work, the marriage is a little rocky.
And poor Larry, life's pretty much the same. No big changes.
I think Brad's story is really interesting because it highlights how, even something like indulging in those
Like comfort foods.
regularly having those rich foods, it can actually impact more than just your diet.
Absolutely. It's not just about the extra calories. It's about the ripple effect it creates. Think about it. You eat those rich foods, you have less energy, you exercise less. You might even start to feel a bit, sluggish, down on yourself.
Yeah, and then maybe you're not as engaged with your partner, less patient. It really can become this downward spiral, right? And you might not even connect it back to those initial choices.
It's so subtle how those things can creep in and impact our overall happiness without us even realizing it.
Yeah, that's powerful. Now, one of the core ideas in the book, I think, is this concept of taking 100% responsibility for our lives, no matter what our circumstances are. I think that can be a pretty tough pill to swallow for some people.
It's a challenging concept for sure.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to look externally, to blame things outside of ourselves for our problems.
Right, but Hardy, he's like, nope, you have a choice. You have power. You can choose how you respond to things. You can choose how you show up.
He's all about owning it.
Yeah.
And, he shares this story about his dad, who was a football coach, super disciplined guy.
I bet.
Yeah, instilled in him this, no excuses mentality from a young age.
Oh, I bet those early lessons, those probably weren't always fun at the time.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But they shaped him, for sure. He learned early on that, no matter what obstacles come your way, you have the power to choose how you respond to them and work through them.
So it sounds like this taking 100% responsibility, it's not about blaming yourself for everything. but it's more about acknowledging that you have the power to influence your outcomes.
Exactly. It's about understanding your role in shaping your own life.
Okay, so then we get into this idea of tracking, which I think is really powerful.
Tracking is huge.
Yeah, and Hardy really emphasizes like keeping track of even the smallest details to kind of shine a light on those daily choices and habits.
It brings awareness to those unconscious patterns that are running the show.
He even talks about how he started tracking like every penny he spent.
Oh, yeah, I love that story. Just to see where his money was actually going.
Because it's so easy to be like, oh, I don't know where all my money goes.
Right. And he found out that daily latte was costing him way more than he realized.
Exactly.
Those little things can add up.
It's like, all of a sudden you see those blind spots that were holding you back.
It's eye-opening.
Yeah, and by tracking, he was able to actually make some changes. What other benefits did he find from tracking?
Well, it's not just about finances. It's about all sorts of habits, both good and bad. You start to see how those unconscious patterns are shaping your life for better or for worse.
Yeah, he says most of our actions, they're driven by these ingrained habits that we're not even aware of. It's like we're on autopilot.
Running on autopilot, which, it can be great if those habits are serving us, but if they're not, it can be dangerous.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little scary, right?
Definitely. He uses this great analogy of an airplane. If the plane is just 1 degree off course at takeoff, it might not seem like a big deal.
Right.
But over a long flight, that tiny deviation can land you hundreds of miles away from where you're supposed to be.
Wow. Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. So if we're kind of, off course, how do we course correct? What's that first step?
The first step is that awareness.
Yeah.
That's what tracking provides. It's about identifying those habits, good or bad, that are dictating our lives.
So we see where we're at, and then we can start making some changes.
Exactly. He has this really powerful question. What are you blaming on external factors that you actually have control over?
Oh, that's good.
It's a challenge to look within and see where we're giving away our power.
So, okay, we're starting to see our habits, we're taking responsibility, but then there's this whole motivation piece, right? How do we get the motivation to break those bad habits that are so ingrained in us?
Motivation is key, for sure. And that's where finding your why comes in. Hardy talks about how having a really strong reason for wanting to change, it's essential.
Okay, but how do we make our why strong enough to actually drive real change,
Well, imagine this. You're walking across a plank of wood on the ground. Easy, right?
Yeah, no problem.
Now imagine that same plank is suspended between 2 skyscrapers.
Suddenly, not so easy. I'm getting a little sweaty palms just thinking about it.
Right. But it's the same plank, same distance.
Mm-hmm.
What changes is the stakes, your motivation, your why. When the why is strong enough, even the most daunting tasks can become achievable.
Oh, I see. So it's like we've got to really connect emotionally to those goals.
Exactly. It's about finding that deeper meaning, that driving force that pushes you forward when things get tough.
Okay, so I want to lose weight. Why? Why do I want to save more money? Why do I want to improve my relationships? It's about really digging deep and finding those answers.
Absolutely. And that's what fuels your commitment. That's what gets you through those moments when you're tempted to fall back into those old habits.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've got our why figured out. We're starting to see those habits. We're motivated to change. What's next? How do we actually take action and do it consistently?
That's where the idea of momentum comes in, what Hardy calls Big Mo.
Ooh, Big Mo.
Big Mo. It's about how our progress starts to snowball. Once we establish those good habits, it gets easier.
Okay, so I'm picturing like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger as it goes.
Exactly. Or think about it like pushing a merry-go-round.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It takes a lot of effort to get it spinning initially, but once it's got momentum, it takes much less energy to keep it going.
So it's not just about starting those positive actions, but also sticking with them long enough for things to really start clicking.
Exactly. And he gives some awesome examples in the book. People like Michael Phelps, companies like Apple, Google, YouTube, they all achieve remarkable success by consistently putting in the effort and riding that wave of momentum.
So how do we create that kind of big mo in our own lives? I mean, I'm guessing routines have something to do with it.
You got it. Routines are key. Hardy really emphasizes creating routines and rhythms that support those desired habits and help us stay on track.
What kind of routines are we talking about here? Does he give examples of what works for him?
He does. He actually lays out his own morning and evening routines, which are designed to set him up for a productive and fulfilling day.
Okay, so that's interesting. But do you think those exact routines would work for everybody? Or is it more about figuring out what works best for you individually?
Definitely about finding what works for you. Hardy encourages readers to design their own routines based on their goals and lifestyle. The key takeaway is that structure and consistency are crucial for building those positive habits.
Right. So find your rhythm, find what works for you, but be consistent.
Exactly. Now, he also talks about the importance of what he calls our influences.
Influences. Okay, interesting. What does he mean by that?
He breaks down our influences into three main categories: input, associations, and environment. And these all play a huge role in shaping our choices.
So, like our surroundings, the people we spend time with, the information we consume, that kind of thing.
You got it. Let's start with input. That's all about the information we're taking in. Books, shows, podcasts, conversations, you name it. Hardy is a big believer in the garbage in, garbage out principle.
Meaning that if we're filling our minds with like negative news all the time, gossip, mindless entertainment, it's going to affect our mood, our outlook, and ultimately our choices.
Exactly. He encourages us to be way more selective about what we let into our minds. Remember that media diet we talked about earlier? It's about actively seeking out information and content that supports our goals and well-being.
So it's not just about cutting out all the bad stuff, but also being intentional about adding in the good stuff.
Exactly. We need to nourish our minds with positive, inspiring content.
Okay, so that's input. What about associations, the people we spend time with, right?
Yep, that's it. Hardy explains this idea of a reference group. It's the group of people we compare ourselves to, the people who influence our decisions. And he says that the people we spend the most time with have a huge influence on our behaviors and our outcomes.
So if you're hanging out with people who are constantly complaining, gossiping, or not taking care of themselves, it's going to be harder for you to break those patterns.
It's like, you are who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, we tend to adopt the habits and mindsets of those around us.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So Hardy suggests being mindful of our social circles and making a conscious effort to connect with people who embody the qualities and values we want to cultivate.
Surround yourself with positive, supportive people who are working towards their goals and lifting each other up. It makes a world of difference.
Love that. Okay, so we've got input, associations, and then last but not least, environment. This is all about our physical surroundings.
Exactly. Think about it. If you're working in a cluttered, chaotic space, it's going to be a lot harder to focus and be productive.
Oh, for sure. Like my desk right now. Too much going on.
I feel you. And Hardy encourages us to create environments that actually support our goals and well-being.
Okay, how do we do that?
Well, it could mean decluttering your workspace, creating a designated area for exercise, or even just surrounding yourself with things that inspire you.
Oh, I like that. So it's about taking control of our space and making it work for us, not against us.
That's the idea. And by paying attention to these three influences, input, associations, and environment, we create this ecosystem that nurtures our growth.
Oh, I like that. It's like everything's connected.
Exactly.
Okay, now in the last part of the book, Hardy introduces this idea of acceleration, which is all about pushing past our limits and multiplying our results.
Turning it up a notch.
Yeah, so it's not just about making steady progress, but finding ways to kick it into high gear.
Exactly. He's talking about going beyond our comfort zone and exceeding expectations.
Do you think anyone can do that? Or is it just for certain types of people?
I think it's something we can all learn to do. Hardy argues that we often limit ourselves based on fear or false assumptions. It's about challenging those beliefs and pushing past them.
Okay, so how do we do that? Are there any techniques or strategies that he suggests?
He offers a lot of great advice. One of his key tips is to focus on multiplying your results.
Okay, I like the sound of that. What does that even mean?
It means going above and beyond what's expected, exceeding your own expectations, and then exceeding the expectations of others. If you're supposed to do 12 reps at the gym, but you push yourself to do 15, those extra reps, the ones after you've hit your limit, those are the ones that really transform you.
So it's like the extra effort is where the real magic happens.
Exactly. It's about pushing those boundaries. He also talks about doing the unexpected, which is about finding ways to stand out, make an impact, and be memorable.
I love that. Do you have a favorite example from the book?
He mentions how he sends Thanksgiving cards instead of Christmas cards, because everyone sends Christmas cards.
I love that.
It's so simple, but so effective.
Yeah, it's just a little thing, but it makes you stand out and it's memorable.
It's about finding those small opportunities to go above and beyond. Show that you care, surprise people.
So it's not about grand gestures, but about those small, thoughtful actions. I like that a lot.
And he also talks about doing better than expected in every area of your life. exceeding the expectations of your clients, your colleagues, even yourself.
Yeah, I can see how that would create this like positive chain reaction, If you're consistently going above and beyond, people are going to notice. They're going to want to work with you.
Absolutely. It builds trust, it strengthens relationships, and it opens up new opportunities.
I'm seeing this theme here with Hardy. He's all about finding those small actions that can create really big results over time.
He is. He calls them multiplier opportunities.
Multiplier opportunity.
It's about finding those leverage points, the areas where you can really maximize your impact. He challenges us to ask ourselves, where can I go above and beyond? Where can I push myself a little harder, prepare a little better, deliver a little bit more?
So it's about being intentional with our efforts, right? Not just going through the motions, but really trying to maximize our potential.
Right? And Hardy believes that by consistently pushing past our perceived limits, exceeding expectations, and finding those multiplier opportunities, we can accelerate our progress and achieve those goals that seem out of reach right now.
So it's not about like overnight success. It's about those consistent efforts over time.
Precisely. Now, in the final section of the book, he emphasizes that it's not enough to just understand these principles. We have to put them into practice.
Right. We've got to do the work.
He provides specific action steps and exercises to help us actually apply these ideas to our lives.
Okay, good. So it's not just about reading the book and feeling inspired. It's about taking action. What kind of guidance does he give?
He starts by encouraging us to identify those areas where we want to see improvement, the areas that matter most to us. And then he suggests creating a clear plan, breaking those big changes down into manageable steps.
That's important, right?
Yeah.
Because if you try to do too much at once, it's easy to get overwhelmed and give up.
Exactly. And as always, he stresses the importance of consistency. Remember, the compound effect is all about the long game. It's those consistent actions over time that lead to extraordinary results. And as we head into the final part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring some of Hardy's key takeaways and how we can apply these powerful principles to create the lives we want. It's not about those quick fixes or those overnight transformations. It's about showing up every day and putting in the work.
Okay, I'm ready to put in the work. Let's get to those key takeaways.
All right, so Hardy, he gives us a system for, really making this compound effect work for us. He calls it FUEL.
FUEL. Okay, I like that. What does it stand for?
FUEL stands for focus, utilize, eliminate, and leverage. It's a framework for maximizing our daily actions and really amplifying that power of the compound effect.
Okay, I'm following you so far. Let's break it down. So focus, what does he mean by that?
Focus is all about, identifying our top priorities, the stuff that really matters, and then eliminating all those distractions that get in our way. Remember the story about the executive who was spending hours each day just reading news articles?
Oh, yeah. He was like drowning in information, didn't know what to do with it all.
Exactly. He wasn't being strategic with his time and energy. Hardy encourages us to be more selective about what we consume, create that media diet we talked about, focus on what really moves us toward our goals.
So it's about being really intentional with our attention, not letting it get hijacked by like every little notification and shiny object.
Yes. And the next element, utilize, build on that. It's about making the most of every single resource we have. Our time, our talents, our network, our environment.
Okay, so it's about being resourceful, like using what we've got to our advantage.
Exactly. And this ties back into the whole doing better than expected idea. Finding those opportunities to add value, go the extra mile, create that wow factor.
Got it. So we've got focus and utilize. What about eliminate? I think I can guess where this one's going.
You probably can. Eliminate is all about identifying and getting rid of those things that are holding us back. Bad habits, negative thoughts, those energy-draining activities that prevent us from really reaching our full potential.
So it's about like decluttering our lives.
Yes.
Okay.
Both physically and mentally. And remember how we talked about the power of tracking? Well, tracking our habits can really help us see those areas where we might be, self-sabotaging, and then create a plan for eliminating those behaviors.
Oh, that's a good point. So it's almost like, to make room for the positive, you got to get rid of some of that negative stuff.
Exactly. It's about creating space for growth. And finally, we have leverage. This is all about finding ways to multiply our efforts and achieve more in less time.
All right, sign me up for that. How do we actually do that? Like, how do we leverage our efforts?
Well, there are a ton of ways. Delegating tasks, automating processes, using technology to streamline our workflow. It's about working smarter, not harder.
Oh, I like that. So realizing that we don't have to do everything ourselves, we can reach out to others, build systems that support us.
Exactly. And that frees up our time and energy so we can focus on the things that really matter.
Okay, so following the FUL system,
Hmm.
focusing our priorities, utilizing our resources, eliminating those distractions, and then leveraging our efforts, we can really turbocharge that compound effect.
It's a recipe for incredible results, for sure. And ultimately, that's what this book is all about. It's about empowering us to make those conscious choices, take control of our lives, and create the future we want.
And it's not just about, like, achieving material success, right? It's about creating a life that's actually fulfilling, a life that feels meaningful.
Absolutely. It's about, cultivating those habits and routines that support a happier, healthier, and more impactful life. It's about becoming the best versions of ourselves.
And I think what I really appreciate about the compound effect is that, it's accessible to everyone. Doesn't matter where you are in life.
Exactly. It's never too late to start.
Yeah. Doesn't matter your background, the challenges you faced, those past mistakes. You can always start making those small changes that add up over time.
That's what's so inspiring about it. It's about progress, not perfection.
So good. Well, as we're wrapping up this deep dive, I'm curious, for you, what's one of the biggest things you're taking away from this book?
That's a great question. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is the power of consistency. It's not about those big dramatic changes. It's those small, everyday actions done consistently that create those extraordinary results. It's about showing up even when you don't feel like it, trusting the process, and knowing that those efforts will compound over time. What about you? What resonated most with you?
That's a good one. I think for me, it's that idea of taking 100% responsibility for my life. It's so easy to get caught up in blaming external circumstances, but when you really embrace that idea that you have the power to choose how you respond, how you show up, it's incredibly empowering.
I love that. It's about recognizing that we're not victims of our circumstances. We have agency.
Exactly. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being proactive and making choices that move us closer to the life we want to create.
And the best part is, we don't have to do it alone. We can learn from others, we can build support systems, and we can inspire each other along the way.
So true. Community is everything. Well, I think that's about it for our deep dive into the compound effect.
I think so.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We did, from those magic pennies to Big Mo to those multiplier opportunities.
So many good nuggets in this book, and I hope everyone listening is feeling as inspired as I am to start putting these principles into action.
Me too. It's about taking that knowledge and turning it into positive change, one small step at a time.
Exactly. And remember, the compound effect is always at work, whether we're aware of it or not. So choose wisely, be consistent, and watch those small choices create those incredible results over time. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
It really is. It's like, you can't see it, but it's always there working in the background.
It's kind of like gravity in a way, right?
Exactly. You can't see it, but it's a powerful force that's constantly influencing our lives.
And we can either let it work against us or we can, learn to harness it to our advantage.
Exactly.
Which is what Hardy gives us a system for doing.
She does.
He calls it, this is cool, he calls it fuel.
Fueler.
So what is fuel and how do we use it to make this whole compound effect really work for us?
Okay, so FUEL stands for focus, utilize, eliminate, and leverage. And it's a framework for making the absolute most of those daily actions and really amplifying the power of a compound effect.
Okay, let's break that down one by one, starting with focus. What do you mean by that?
Focus is all about identifying those top priorities, the things that really matter to us, and then, getting rid of all those distractions that get in the way. Remember that story about the executive, the one who was spending hours every day just reading news articles?
Oh, yeah. He was overwhelmed with information.
Drowning in it. He wasn't being strategic with his time and energy. Hardy really encourages us to, be more selective about what we consume, create that media diet that we talked about earlier, focus on the stuff that actually moves us closer to our goals.
Okay, so it's about being more intentional with our attention, not letting it get, pulled in a million directions.
Exactly. And the next element, utilize, kind of builds on that. It's all about, making the most of all those resources we have available, our time, our talents, our network, even our physical surroundings.
Okay, so being resourceful and creative, using what we've got to our advantage.
Exactly. And, this ties back into that whole doing better than expected thing, finding those opportunities to go the extra mile, add value, create that wow factor.
I like it. So we've got focus, utilize. What about eliminate?
I think you can guess what this one is about.
Yeah, I think I can. Probably getting rid of the stuff that's not working.
You got it. It's about identifying and, eliminating those things that are holding us back. Bad habits, negative thoughts, energy-draining activities, anything that prevents us from reaching our full potential.
So it's like decluttering, right?
Exactly. Decluttering our lives, both physically and mentally.
Yeah.
And, it goes back to tracking. When we track our habits, it helps us see those areas where we might be self-sabotaging.
Right.
And then we can create a plan to actually eliminate those behaviors.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So to make room for the good stuff, we got to get rid of the not so good stuff.
Exactly. It's about clearing space for growth.
Okay, love it.
Yeah.
And then the final piece of fuel, we've got leverage.
Leverage.
So tell me about leverage.
Leverage is all about, finding ways to multiply our efforts
Okay.
and achieve more in less time.
All right. I am all about that. So how do we do that? How do we leverage our efforts?
Well, think about things like, delegating tasks, automating processes, using technology to streamline our workflows. It's all about working smarter, not harder.
I love that. So recognizing that, we don't have to do everything ourselves.
Nope.
We can reach out, we can ask for help, we can build those systems that support us.
Absolutely.
So by following the fuel system, we can really turbocharge the whole compound effect thing.
Big time.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, as we're wrapping up this deep dive into the compound effect, what are your final thoughts?
I think this book is such a powerful reminder that we have more control over our lives than we often realize. It's not about luck or circumstance. It's about making those conscious choices and taking those consistent actions that move us toward our goals.
It's about that long game.
Exactly. It's about showing up every day and putting in the work, knowing that those small efforts will compound over time and create those amazing results.
I love that. It's inspiring. So for everyone listening, what's one small action that you can commit to today? What's one tiny change that can set you on a path to creating that life that you really want?
It could be anything.
It could be, starting a new habit, getting rid of a distraction, reaching out to someone for support.
Doesn't have to be big.
It's those little things that make a big difference. So choose wisely, be consistent, and watch as those small choices create those incredible results over time. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
If you made it to the end of the video, thanks so much for listening. If you want to get the book for yourself, use the link in the description. If you're looking to level up your income, schedule a one-on-one with me to see if what I do might be right for you. Remember, like if you like the content and share so we can all become more book buff and life smart.